Hey, this is Chuck, and you are listening to Fans with Bands, the podcast where we talk to the fans and the bands they dig about life, music, and whatever the hell else we want to talk about. Today's episode is brought to you in part by Fret Rescue. Located in Southeast Michigan, Joe at Fret Rescue has over 17 years of experience as a journeyman luthier. From basic setup to major repairs and restorations, you can put your trust in Fret Rescue. Contact Fret Rescue via email at fretrescue@gmail.com. You can also find them on social media by searching for Fret Rescue, @FERTRESCUE. That's Fret Rescue. Today on Fans with Bands, we're talking to Rob Zinck and The Collaborators. Check it out. Hey, this is Chuck with Fans with Bands, and I'm talking to Rob Zinck of Rob Zinck and The Collaborators. Rob, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. So you were kind enough to reach out to me about doing something on the podcast for Fans of Bands, and I went and checked out Swimmer Sync, and I was like, "Wow, it's a great album. It's fantastic."
Thank you. That's really nice to hear.
I love the the punk and the alt rock vibes of it. I was thinking of like Social Distortion and the Descendants a bit. Thought the songwriting was fantastic. Thought the performance was great. The way the album's put together, everything, the hooks, the energy of the whole thing. It's really great. So I want to thank you so much for getting that into my purview, because I would have missed it otherwise.
My man, what a fantastic way to start this off. Thank you.
So I think I read that you are originally from Alaska.
Yeah.
So how did you end up in Michigan?
After I was done with school, I originally was born in Fairbanks, Alaska. I lived in a very small town called Manly Hot Springs, which was like 4 hours down a dirt road from Fairbanks.
Wow.
And it's a town of like 60 people, maybe 100 in the summer when it's nicer. We lived there until I was like 7. I moved down to the Kenai Peninsula with my parents. I lived there until I graduated high school. And I ended up going to college in Anchorage. And after that, it was just kind of like moving out of Alaska is like a rite of passage for pretty much everybody that I grew up with. You go out for a while and, you come back. Some people stay out.
Yeah.
But it was just, I was looking for a way to move, and I was considering, anywhere like Washington, Oregon, or California. But I can't really throw a rock in any of those states without hitting people I know, because Alaskans just kind of like seep down the west, go to where it's warmer,
Right.
But my sister had moved out here to go to college in 2002. And in 2010, when she was getting married, I came down here for her wedding for the first time. And that was right when like a bunch of stuff in my life had kind of blown up. Like the band that I was in was kaput, and I was just trying to figure out like, what am I going to do next? And she was basically like, well, just come here, because then you can kind of start somewhere new instead of going somewhere where you're already going to have like a built-in like social circle instead of expectations and like social expectations, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was September 2010 when I came down to visit. And yeah, like December 2010, I had moved here.
Oh,
And
wow.
like rented a room from her for a little bit, and genuinely didn't know, like, is this gonna work? Because like I say, man, like so many people are like, all right, I'm gone for good, I'm never
Right.
and either because like it doesn't go well for them, or because they're like, okay, actually, you know what, the grass is always greener on the other side, I miss my home. um it worked, and I managed to put down roots. I met good people like pretty early on and developed a good network, and miraculously, like I didn't fall flat on my face. So
Awesome. So
I mean, long story long, just like trying to get the hell out of the place that you're growing up
right.
in, and being like, well, maybe this will work. I don't know. It's a pretty stupid gamble, but sometimes they pay off.
Right. And I think you were saying that you had been in a band in Alaska then that had kind of gone kaput, and were you? So you were making music basically before you got here to Michigan?
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of funny though. I was playing in a death metal band, like I don't know if you're
All
familiar
right.
with Behemoth
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
stuff like that. It started out when we were in high school. I was like 15. I met these guys that like went to another school in a different town, and I've been playing guitar for a couple of years, and I'm kind of like the like punky emo goth kid. And there was not, let me tell you, a whole lot of that. That was really like in the culture in
Yeah.
rural Alaska. So I met good people that, yeah, I ended up like bonding with over that stuff. And I just kind of wanted to do it and see if it would work. But at the time, I was very much a metalhead and like there's so much stuff from like that era that I missed out on because I was like, oh, if it's not just like chugging and like brutal vocals, like
Yeah.
it's silly. But we started out as like a Poison the Well style like screamo band.
Yeah.
Then oddly enough, it was Black Dahlia Murder when Miasma came out that I heard that, and my singer had kind of like been in my ear about it. It was like we should be doing stuff like this. Us, like if you're like a like diehard metalhead, Black Dahlia Murder is like, yeah, like they're pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
But to us, it was like this is mind blowing. So we started going more in that direction, and then we ended up changing bass players in like 2007, and he was very much a like old school, like traditional death metal guy, and he introduced me to stuff like yeah, like Behemoth and Deicide was a
Oh
really big
yeah.
one.
DSI.
So I had this whole like arc as a metalhead for like the first like age 15 to 20, pretty much. And then we were just unfocused young guys and we did really well in Anchorage and we had a lot of fun. And that was a surprisingly vibrant music scene, and especially like metal and like black metal, death metal. Like there was a great hardcore scene there. The metal kids and the hardcore kids did not always get along, but we always had fun at the end of the
Yeah.
day. Um, but yeah, I did that for a long time and I felt like, oh yeah, like this is what I'm into and this is what's going to work. And then it disintegrated and we kind of felt like um, we were on top of the world and anytime like a big name, when I say big name, I mean like Bleeding Through or like 36 Crazy Fists. 36 Crazy Fists are from Anchorage initially. But like we got to open for bands that we liked and stuff, and we kind of
Yeah.
thought we were, hot stuff.
Right,
Because
right.
young and dumb, but we didn't put the effort into actually doing the boring side of it and like promoting and trying to stick together and make it sustainable and stuff. So
Right.
that happened, and then it all just went away, and I'm kind of like, all right, well, what am I gonna do? And that was my first experience with man, I put all this time and work into something and I can't use any of it. Like now it's just all gone. So
Right. Holy crap. So, but you said like, earlier, because you're obviously not playing death metal now. Um,
not publicly.
yeah. Yeah. At least not in Rob Zink and the Collaborators. You're not doing death metal. So were you always into like I mean, because this album, it's got a lot of different features. Like there's you've got very, lots of different textures. It's not just all like hardcore. There's some songs that are like more fast paced, but there's tunes like what was that? Orange Juice. Super cool. I love that song. Um, or We Aren't Friends, which still has more of that punky edge, but it's definitely not metal. So were you always into that style of music too, as well as the Behemoth and At the Gates and everything else?
Yeah, at the Gates is a great reference. Well done. Yeah, I absolutely was. I kind of thought that like I don't know, people don't react the same way live to stuff like that they do to the really aggressive stuff. So
Yeah,
like I appreciate the compliment on the dynamics of the record because it's something that I genuinely thought about was I don't want it to just be like the same speed the whole time. And I don't mean
yeah,
just like tempo wise, just like same feel, like every song is basically like, okay, cool, here comes another one.
right.
But yeah, I always had a little bit of that, and I kind of went through a lot of phases because like I started playing guitar when I was like my dad played music, so
Oh, cool.
he basically gave me like free reign over his instruments from like 5 and on.
Wow, awesome.
But I mean, at like 11, I was learning to play guitar by doing like Blink-182 songs and Nirvana songs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like Black Sabbath was the first riff that he taught me because it's just a like, okay, you can just use a single finger and
Right.
um, but I never really wanted to do like just that one thing.
Hmm.
And even when I was doing Omerta, which was the death metal band, um, I still had stuff that I would kind of like play with on the side because it was like that mid 2000s era of like emo was very, very big. And there was a ton of crossover for like punk and hardcore and metal and death metal and like lots of experimentation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I was, of course, totally ignorant of like the actual history of like hardcore and emotional hardcore and like the DC hardcore scene and the things that I really, really appreciate now. But I just knew that like there's all these little bits of like ingredients that are kind of mashed up in this stuff. And if
Yeah.
you can kind of pick out the stuff that you like and start following that, then yeah, eventually you get to it. But really what it was just after that band was over, um I just wanted to do something that I felt like even if I couldn't rely on anybody else at all, I could at least write songs and record them and release them and like have fun doing it.
Yeah.
And like it definitely felt like, okay, maybe it's time to be a little more like thoughtful and serious, which I don't mean to be in any way dismissive about like the thought and seriousness that metal musicians put into their craft at
Oh, for
all.
sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of felt like maybe this isn't what I want to be doing forever. But you can kind of hear elements of all of that stuff. And it definitely informed the way that I think of like melody and song structure. I just ended up figuring out that I liked hardcore and punk a lot more as something that I could like write and record and perform because what I really, really liked about doing the death metal and black and death metal stuff was just the energy and aggression's not really the right word, but
Yeah.
it's the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah. It's the power, I guess, of it. There's this kind of a visceral, like, um, physiological power to heavy metal, and particularly like death metal or grind or any of those things where it's just blazing speed, and some of it's fun just technically, just to play guitar that fast and try.
And like the vibe and the image and stuff, like yeah,
Yeah.
like it's like way, way over the top. But like that was definitely a thing where I kind of figured out like, okay, I kind of like I need there to be an element of like darkness in anything that I'm going to be doing because I like that vibe and I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah. So on Swimmer Sync, which is the new album you have out, uh, what I mean, I know this is a tough question because it's like picking your children. What's your favorite song on there, and what is it about that song that you love?
Um, I really like Behave because it came together really nicely. It was something that I wrote like specifically for this band after we'd been playing for a while. So it felt very good because I went through a phase where I was singing like just as a frontman without a guitar for
Uh,
a band called Loggerheads. And because I didn't have a band where I was the primary songwriter and I was playing guitar, I wasn't doing it a whole lot.
yeah.
And I was kind of worried that like, oh man, like what if this is it for me? Like what if I've exhausted my like creative outlet and like this is uh everything that I was writing at that time just kind of felt like you just going through the motions, man. So putting a set together and then feeling like I called a lot of that from songs that I'd written from way earlier. And like there's a ton of stuff that didn't make the record that was basically like the starter songs that we used to kind of like get to know how playing with each other was going to work.
Oh, cool.
Um, but I particularly like Behave because it came after everything was established. And I genuinely like the way that it's crafted. I think it's one of the better like songs arrangement wise that I've written.
Uh,
Um, And like I say, it came after sort of a period of uncertainty as far as like, do I have like great ideas left, or is it just like, yeah, man, that works. That's good.
Right.
So
Well,
I particularly like that one. I really like We Aren't Friends. I
yeah.
kind of thought that that was going to be more what I was doing. Like I was going to be doing, like Death Cab for Cutie or like John Vanderslice type stuff.
Yeah.
And, um, when you try to do stuff like that live, sometimes it works really well. But sometimes when you're at a rock and roll bar in Detroit, people don't want to hear you cry. They want you to rock. So,
But I think that tune's awesome, actually. I think because I was going to ask you, like, what was the influence behind that? Because it's not the most uplifting of lyrics, um, but it's a good song. I think I liked it.
So that was like after I'd separated from Loggerheads, that was a crop of like songs kind of in that vein that I thought again, like just like after the death metal band had split up, okay, if I can just do this by myself, if I can figure out a way where I don't have to rely on anybody, then I don't really have to worry about losing stuff again. The best way to do that, at least to get started, all right, let's write some guy with the guitar stuff
Right.
and then see how it goes. But yeah, I love that song. That was July of 2019, so like maybe 6 months before I decided, all right, let's see if a live band is in the cards for this or like is a good idea at all.
Yeah.
Um, but that's one of those songs that I think is necessary in the mix because again, it can't just all be like punk rock cut time or
Yep.
mid-tempo like 130 beat per minute like alt rock songs.
Right.
You
Right.
have to have something that is like variety and keeps it interesting. What we figured out though is that people like that song and they especially like the chorus.
Yeah.
And it's not like, the lyrics are intelligible. People have told me that they like find it very relatable, which is super flattering. But we figured out live that like you make that like second because otherwise if it's like sixth in the set, then it's the smoke break song. And you watch everybody like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna go have one, man. You can like
Yeah.
see work through the crowd.
Speaking of like, you mentioned like songs that kind of break things up a little bit. So does it's Before I Was, but Now I Am. That tune is super cool. I love that kind of there's a funkiness to the guitar playing in there.
Thank you.
What was the inspiration for that one?
So that's actually a really old one. That was written in that period between like when the death metal band had broken up, but I hadn't yet moved here. And I was working on this like demo EP to basically have something when I hit the ground that I could show people and be like, look, like I know what I'm doing. I don't suck. I'm not just some idiot that thinks like, yeah, man, I play guitar too.
Right.
Um, but I was listening to a lot of Choking Victim and Leftover Crack. And I had just gotten that Fuzz Factory pedal that features pretty prominently in the tone on that song.
Uh-huh.
And I was just trying to like play around with something that had that sort of like, upstroke guitar, like Tim Armstrong, Rancid, Leftover Crack, sort of like not quite ska punk.
Yeah.
Um, but
But a little bit
you
of
don't
that feel. Yep. Yep.
yeah, because when you say it's got that like kind of like funky guitar playing and stuff like that. Yeah, and then there's the like wah section in the middle, which is like borders on cheesy, but it's somehow like it kind of fits.
I think it
And
works great, actually.
thank you. Like I say, I want I want to mix things in that don't necessarily like go together because I'm listening to those leftover crack records and there's a like insanely aggressive like almost like blackened crust punk song and then the next one is like an accordion and an acoustic guitar and a mandolin and it's like oh okay they're working all sorts of disparate influences in and stuff
Yeah.
but if it works it works and if
Yeah.
it's good then you should do it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So I think you mentioned that your dad played guitar and he had guitars. Was he like a primary influence? Were there other influences that got you wanting to play music?
I mean, I would say it was pretty much him, like, especially early on, because like I say, when we were living in Manly Hot Springs, there's not a whole lot of other people around. So,
Right.
but yeah, he had an old like 12 string Gibson that he would pack around like when we were camping and stuff. But he had this like, 60s Telecaster that he had like bought from a buddy in the 70s for like just a stupid low amount of money that would be like crazy now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like never really messed with it. But then my uncle gifted him a drum set in sometime in the early 90s. And he would play on that and like just basically make me sit up and keep time, like to the best of like a
Right.
7-year-old's ability. Probably more just a function of like if you're sitting here, I know where you're at. Um, but yeah, just it- seeing your parents do stuff like that when you're a kid just kind of seems like, oh, this is super cool. And
Yeah.
on Friday nights, like my mom would play drums and my dad would play guitar. And yeah, as like a 6-year-old, you're like, cool, my parents are like the cool parents. Like they let me play Punch Out and they're like rocking Cinnamon Girl for us.
Oh, that's awesome. So I have to imagine it was later for you once you were maybe in college, but uh, what was the very first concert you ever went to?
Oh, first like actual concert would have been Los Lobos in Fairbanks in
Nice.
like probably 1994. Are you familiar with Los
Oh
Lobos?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Um, my dad liked watching Austin City Limits, so
Yep.
that was a way that we like found out about new music and stuff like that. So, something like that came to town, we got an opportunity to do it, we would. But yeah, we went to see that, and again, like as a very little kid who doesn't get a whole lot of exposure to stuff like that, something like that is like the coolest thing in the world. They had two like full drum sets on stage for
Oh
that.
nice. Yeah.
That one dude plays this like really sick gold Les Paul like 59 gold top.
Yep.
Um, so like that, now I tell people that was my first concert, and that's the actual truth. When I was like, oh, I'm too cool for stuff like that,
Yeah.
I would say that my first concert was Ozzy Osbourne on the Down to Earth tour in like 2001 at
Nice.
Sullivan Arena in Fairbanks, which was great for me because at that age I loved Zakk Wylde and thought it's like this is like everything a cool guitar player is supposed to be.
Right. Right. Yeah. That dude. I mean, he is. Uh, y- I love Zach Wild, but I also sometimes get a little bit tired of his playing. When you compare it to
Oh,
like
it's
Randy
yeah.
Rhoads, but he
It's a
definitely
hundred
has that
percent
look.
thing that an 11-year-old is like, this is the coolest guitar playing is allowed.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, hopefully Zach isn't listening 'cause, and is bummed out. But the pinch harmonics a little bit. You're like, all right,
Well,
lay off
again,
those.
not to knock it. Like I still like stuff like that,
Oh hell yeah, yeah.
Um, but
I
yeah,
mean,
that
I
and
would go see him anytime.
that's well, actually, I did a couple of weeks ago. That was my third time now.
Oh, Zach Sabbath.
Three different bands. Because yeah, he was doing he was playing the Dimebag Darrell role for
Oh, Pantera.
I call them Pantera Ain't because like man. But yeah, that was I was laughing about that. I'm like, man, I like can't get away from the music that I liked when I was in like eighth grade because yeah, that was the third time I seen him with a different band each time. And that just made me feel like, oh, like whether you like it or not, you're a super fan of this for the rest of your life.
So do you remember what your first album was? That you got or CD
Like
or
CD that I got.
yeah, yeah.
Um, man, I think it was like the Space Jam soundtrack.
Awesome.
First one that I would have bought for like, oh yeah, like this is like a cool CD that I want to get was Black Sabbath Paranoid.
Oh, awesome.
And
Awesome.
then that was one of those like again, my dad hooking me up on one of those yeah, get 12 CDs for a penny. Uh
Oh yeah, yeah, the
so yeah,
Columbia
I
House
got
deal.
that and then Nirvana Unplugged in New York, which was my first like real exposure to Nirvana. I'd probably heard some of that stuff on the radio.
Yeah.
But like that album and that concert and performance specifically was how like I came to really, really appreciate that band. And yeah, then I went and listened to like Nevermind and In Utero, and I'm like, oh, huh, okay. These sound different.
So was Ozzy your introduction to like metal music then, or
100%. Yeah.
yeah,
My buddy in fifth grade gave me his dad's copy of the We Sold Our Souls for Rock and Roll compilation,
yeah,
and it's got like the like S runes on the cover, and it just kind of looked like, oh, this is spooky. And yeah, that was immediately appealing to me.
awesome. So if you could play anywhere with the collaborators, um, what is there a particular venue or country or place that you'd like to play? Like if it's kind of a dream location?
Man, if it wasn't cost prohibitive, I would love to take Collaborators and a couple other bands from here and go do the Denina Center in Anchorage, and just like go back home and play a big show, um, and try to get like there's still a few people that are like kicking around there.
Yeah,
There's a band called She and a band called Decepticide that I she started just before I left, but like they're like hardcore and metal bands and stuff.
yeah.
But who cares? Like make it a festival. Everybody like bring whatever kind of music you want to. But no, I would love to go back and like play with friends and like get to take the people that I've met here
Yeah,
to my home and be like, check this out. There's actually a scene here, and like it's pretty good.
that's awesome. So have you been back to Alaska since you moved here?
Yeah, to
Yeah.
visit quite a bit.
Are your
Although,
parents still there?
yeah. So
Yeah.
they
Okay.
still live in the like town where I grew up and graduated high school.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, last time was 2018. Um, and then yeah, we had plans to go up there in 2020, but
Yeah, got the kibosh there. Yeah, yeah. So, where in the Kenai is it? I'm trying to remember. Is that where Seward is?
yeah, so Seward's also on the Kenai
Yeah.
Peninsula. My parents live in a town called Nikiski. That's where I grew up. We moved there in like 1996.
Nice.
Um, and there's that like Kenai, Soldotna, and Nikiski like little Tri-City area there. It's like 3 hours south of Anchorage. And it's not like it's a lot less mild than like interior Alaska where we were living.
Yeah.
Not that it's, not cold. Like right now, they're experiencing a cold snap. But there'll be days where like it's colder here than it is at my parents' place or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I was in Nikiski until like 2006. And then yeah, like moved to Anchorage until 2010 to like kind of pretend to go to school and not do a very good job at it while I like partied too much with a bunch of idiots. Which is not that's not an insult. If
Yeah, you got
any
to
of my
do it.
buddies are listening, we were all idiots and we had a great time.
That's what you got to do. I
Everybody's
Yeah, I was actually in Alaska in 1999.
yeah,
Yeah, visited Seward, Denali, went up to Anchorage.
cool.
I think that's it. Homer. Took a few.
Homer's a great little spot, man. I
Yeah,
love that place.
yeah, cool, awesome. Yeah, that would be fun actually for you guys to go back there. I think I would imagine, just to go play and have some fun.
Yeah, I mean, what would be wonderful is to like, okay, like let's play Anchorage, let's do a city show, and then yeah, let's like go play like one of these like small towns that we used to raise hell in, because like when we were still in high school, we would rent out the roller rink in Soldotna, and we could like easy get like 300 or 400 kids on a Saturday, because like what else
I
is
was
there
there
to
to do.
and like the parents are cool with it because
Right.
they're not serving alcohol, although, I'm sure that stuff was around. I, of course, would have no idea. Um, but yeah, it was good, clean fun, and there's not a whole lot else going on. So like people are into it when you do it. And if you're putting on a good show and people are having a good time,
Yeah.
they're like always appreciative.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
So yeah, it would be great. We actually we tried to book a show in Homer, and we had to like it was at like a cultural center or something like that, and we had to kind of like submit a package. So we just like linked them to our MySpace page in the days when that was like still cutting edge. Um, and we got a like we got a response from the Chamber of Commerce that basically told us, like, please don't come. We used to advertise ourselves as Band and Homer.
So, I think is it Dan and Phil? Are they still the collaborators?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And how did you guys get together? How did you meet those guys?
So Dan is actually the guy that I like met first when I moved here, trying to connect with the band. I answered an ad on Craigslist and just showed up at this person's house, and they were like, "Yeah, we need a singer for a punk band." And again, I just kind of figured like if I can just get in doing a job in a band, then eventually I will meet enough people that I can do the job that I want to do
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
band.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I met Dan, and he was playing with a drummer named Alex and a guitar player named Steve Stalker. Steve plays bass now for Jackson and the Pool Sharks.
Oh, cool.
Um, but yeah, that started out as like I was just singing, and then I was like, hey, like I can play guitar too. Steve was happy to have like a little bit of backup on that. Um, and that band ended up being called The Means. We released two EPs under that name. And Steve was on the first one. He left after that, but on good terms, and we stayed buddies. He's got a kind of a tongue-in-cheek production credit on the second DP because we basically just tapped him to be like, "Hey, will you like come down to Ohio with us for the weekend and sit on the couch and just tell us like that sounds good? I don't know about that." Um, but yeah, I'd met Dan doing that. And then the means lasted until about 2016. Like we did that second release in 2014, and I didn't have anything like left in the tank after that. We kind of like weren't getting along at a certain point,
Mhm.
and a friend of mine had asked me if I wanted to come and try singing for his garage rock band, and it just kind of again like it just was a slow like all right, this is dissolved now, and we can pick it back up at any time.
Yeah.
But for now, like none of us are none of us are really like contributing very much anymore. So but yeah, when I knew that I wanted to put a band together, like Dan is the only bass player that I've worked with in terms of like this kind of music, playing
Yeah.
guitar.
Okay.
And he has a knack for anticipating what I'm looking for. He comes up with really, really interesting ideas, stuff that I wouldn't think of. It's like he knows the thing that I want to hear in my head, even if I'm like, I don't know about that the first time he tries it.
Right.
Um, and yeah, like sometimes there is stuff that it's like, yeah, I don't know about that. But he's got a knack for just really good bass parts that are very complementary. And Phil was the drummer in Loggerheads.
Okay.
And he and I had both kind of, because this is like a bluesy, Detroity, like garage rock band, which like I had a lot of fun doing, but is not like the thing that I wanted to be doing.
Right.
And Phil is a big punk guy. So we would kind of like chat at band practice about like, oh, like, maybe sometime we'll like put something together or whatever. Like
Yeah.
we'll
Do
just
this.
do like the four chords and an attitude thing.
Right.
Um, so he and I had talked about that, and I kind of thought that that was going to be more like a, uh, well, we'll just have fun with it, and like we'll just throw stuff together. It won't really be like a serious thing.
Right.
Then it was kind of like, all right, well, let's take the idea of the kind of more stripped down stuff, the mellower stuff, the stuff that I can do on my own. And again, like meld it with something that you wouldn't necessarily expect, which is the more like aggressive, like upbeat, punky stuff, and
Yeah.
see if we can like find this synthesis and kind of, like cancel out the contradictions there and make it work. And it does. So.
Nice. Nice. So what's I mean, you've got the new album which just came out like the last fall, right? Or
Yeah, November.
yeah, November. Um, so what's next for you guys? You got shows lined up. And just so if you mention shows, this will be like about 3 weeks out. So
Okay. Um, well, that may be perfect. So we're at Kaji Cafe on February 24th
oh, nice,
with Velos and the Picassos. Um, I'm actually helping out with Corktown Music Festival this year.
cool.
We're playing opening night of that, March 28th. But for the most part, like I'm not doing the like big things coming this year.
Yeah, yeah,
I all last year. So just kind of trying to keep the momentum going. And, um, I said that the means after that second record, everything just kind of petered out because I didn't have anything like in the chamber ready to go. So like coming up to the release, I started actively thinking about like new song ideas and sketching stuff out so that we don't like get to the end of it and then just be like, okay,
yeah. That was it.
now what? Um, but yeah, basically just like kind of solidifying ourselves more in the area, trying to get in touch with more promoters and other bands and network and just be the kind of band that is reliable and shows up and you want to book them, but you don't see them everywhere all the time.
Yeah,
So I'm always shooting for like once a month or so in
yeah,
the area.
yeah.
I'd like to get some out of state stuff going too. But that would require a decent vehicle, which has been a problem lately. So see about that. But
Oh
just
man,
basically trying to not really like hunker down or like rest on our laurels or anything, but just gig behind the record and um, expand the base. And then almost the entire point of like having a release as a band is basically to legitimize it and be like, yeah, we're like actually doing this.
right.
So it's just a better way to, believe me, it is so much easier to like book and talk to people when you can point them to something that you're actually like have produced,
Oh hell
as
yeah,
opposed to like, oh yeah, man, we're totally working on this. I will send you some like demos on like Google Drive.
yeah. Yeah, it definitely helps to have like something solid. And it sounds like you got some good, good gigs. Corktown was fun. I went to that last year. It was really cool. Is it PJs you playing
We're doing
or I
opening
guess
night.
it's Lager House, not PJs
Yeah.
anymore. But
We're doing opening night at Corktown Tavern.
oh, cool.
Yeah,
That's right, because Scott books there now. I forgot about that.
correct.
Yeah,
Yes, got it.
awesome. Very cool. You should get in touch with Chris Taylor. You guys would go over well at Fuzz Fest. You ever heard of that little deal he does at the Blind Pig?
I have not, but I will check that out.
Yeah, for sure. Chris is the man. He's been setting it up for what last year was the seventh year. So it's very cool. It's all the kind of like either psychedelic rock, punk, hardcore, some weird experimental crap, you know.
Right.
It's all over the
It's one of
place.
those are we.
Yeah.
All of it, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're just like, what is this? One minute you're like, you've got snafu, and then the next minute you've got, I don't know, something else completely different. Somebody playing a sitar and, some kind of crazy uh, electronic rig. But it's a
Awesome.
cool, yeah, it's a cool time. One other thing, just to plug to get you out there because I think it'll be fun. There's this music series in Chelsea that I think you would go over well at because they're starting to do some more rock, like a rock, what they call a rock stage. They had like War Horses. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Mhm.
Um, and they even had like a progressive metal band out there, but it's called Sounds and Sights. It's in Chelsea. The deadline to submit for that is the 16th of February. But anyway, I know the guy that runs that thing, so I'll put in a good word
That
if
would
you're
be awesome.
interested.
I
Yeah,
appreciate the recommendation. Yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah.
no, man, we're just basically just trying to keep it steady and not now we can kind of relax almost
Mhm.
because we don't have the like release hanging over us and the timing and trying to make sure that like production and duplication and everything went well. Like
Yeah,
we only did vinyl this time, which was very cool because that was my first time like pressing to vinyl. So that was like a little milestone.
yeah.
Um, But man, that is so much more stressful than just being like, yeah, 1,000 CDs from CD Baby, let her rip, let's go.
So I did notice that you guys had the vinyl, which I thought was super cool. Is that your preferred way to listen to music now, or what inspired that? I mean, because it's tough, and I was curious, where did you get it cut at?
So we got it cut at Archer Records in Detroit.
Awesome.
And he would probably want me to say that like it's a pressing plant, it's not cut because
Yeah,
the like made cut versus pressing thing.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, we went there on the recommendation of a friend of mine, Tony Muggs, who does
Oh
do
yeah, Tony's awesome.
course. Um, but yeah, that was a super great experience. I was looking at a few places. They beat them as far as like cost, plus didn't have to worry about shipping. And Mike that runs the place is just a very friendly and straightforward, super easy to work with. But I wanted to get vinyl because there's almost no point in like duplicating CDs as this kind of a band anymore.
Right.
Um, and it's my preferred way to like actually buy music for sure. Um, I don't have the best like turntable setup anymore, unfortunately. I left a lot of stuff like back home when I moved, and it's like, well, I'm not paying to ship that,
Yeah.
but I'm also not paying to replace it.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, I just, that seems like, again, it's like a legitimizing factor, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a little more real and it's fun because it does sound great. And like the like mastering job for the record, Ed at Woodshed Studios, who I'm very glad that I remembered to mention him. That would be so rude.
Yeah.
He did a fantastic job on that. I mean, it sounds awesome. And again, then it's fewer pieces of inventory for sure. Because like I still have some of those first Means records or
The
in my
CDs.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like I can't do this again where I just like have them haunting me for the rest of my life.
Right. Right. Yeah, I've got a box of CDs when I was in a band, like, well, it was 30 years ago. But this label put out reissued some stuff that we did, but I still have those CDs sitting in the basement. I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna do with
Exactly.
them. So, I was thinking of something when you were talking about the mastering of that album, because it sounds really great. Do you feel like you captured your, your sound the way you envision it should sound live? Because I know that happens sometimes where a band will make a recording, and you've me being the listeners has perhaps experienced that band. Then they go listen to the album and they go, well, this kind of lacks, doesn't have the same energy. Do you feel like you captured that, your live kind of sound?
I don't know if I would want to capture every instance of our live sounds. I feel like it sounds like us. Like it sounds like a band in a room actually playing music. Um, the great thing about working with Ed was that he was very much just a like I put the microphone down, I get out of the way. He didn't want to do much to like color the sound except to make it sound the way that it's supposed to if you're sitting in a room and you're watching people like actually perform live. The feel of it is definitely much more live than any other record that I've done because we did not use a click. It was just a like reference tempo at the beginning and then me and Phil playing together to track the drums. So you get the natural like variation in tempo, and like those actual, dynamics. Because sometimes there's parts where, you'll write a song and the beginning sounds great at like 130 beats a minute. And then if you get to the bridge, then it's like, whoa, this sounds like crazy rushed. But you very rarely figure that out until you go into the studio and you're like, oh, the tempo here is not quite the way that it should be. And in the past, I've always like flattened those things out and just found that like happy medium.
Yeah.
And, it's always worked. But this sounds much more honest. Earnest is probably the word.
Yeah.
And, if I say visceral, I don't mean like, it's like super raw or anything like that. but there's not a whole lot of stuff for us to hide behind. And the like actual like production, like extra things over the top is mostly just, okay, let's throw some like vocal harmonies on that. Let's double the guitars here. But like my favorite thing about it is the drum sound because it is that like Steve Albini, like PJ Harvey drum sound. It's not as like boomy as In Utero,
Yep.
but I love that, like, just very transparent, like in the room. There's not like a heavy, like gated reverb on the snare or anything like that.
Yeah.
There's zero replacement as far as like no replacement hits or anything. Like everything you hear is actually the drums that were played,
Oh, cool.
which even on past records when like I've been happy with the drum sound, it's always like a mix of the two, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So like to me, that's an incredible skill and a super good testament to Ed's ability because yeah, like you say, so often you need all of that stuff to like fatten it up.
Yeah.
And it's not always a matter of like the performer or the instrument, it's on the production. So you need somebody that is like very knowledgeable and knows how to get that stuff. And like, yeah, if you just stick a microphone next to a drum set and you expect it to sound like it does in the room, it's not going to happen. But
Yeah.
he's like measuring all of the angles for like, okay, where to tape this. Like he taped mics down on the floor, like in front of the kit and stuff like that. So
Wow.
so that you got this actual like if you listen to it in headphones, there genuinely are moments where it's like that immersive 3D sound, and that is so much cooler to me than like, yeah, we just like did full replace. It sounds so slick, dude. Like, right, it does sound
Yeah.
slick,
Yeah.
but you're like missing the like human element of it. It
Right.
it no longer sounds like a person made this. It sounds
Yeah.
too perfect. You get that like uncanny valley thing where it's like, ooh, that's like bad CGI, where it's like, oh, that's too far.
Right. That's a good that's a good analogy. I like that. Cuz yeah,
Yeah,
there are times when you're just like, no, it's too perfect or it's compressed or, there's
the tough thing is too that like people love that because that's what they're like kind of used to hearing at this
yeah.
like autotune is ubiquitous. And like people hear the sound of an actual human voice and are kind of like, get a load of this. So yeah.
Oh man. So was there anything that you would have changed now that it's been out for a little bit that you wish you had done differently?
I just wish I had like more time and been more relaxed about it. It would have been nice to have been recording in like warmer weather so that I didn't have to worry so much about like my voice. Like I've got a like sinus thing now, so I'm kind of like fighting that off. But I've got a 3-year-old in daycare full time,
Uh-huh.
so it's a like constant cycle of like once every 6 weeks, I'm sick for 6 weeks, and then 6 weeks I'm good. So just kind of have to like time those things. But
Right.
no, I was saying that like when I was talking to the guys about it, like the next one that we do, we're gonna like take our time because like we already have a record out, so we don't have to
Yeah,
worry
there's no
about
rush.
don't have anything.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt like, well, we could do an EP and then release it, but it's honestly going to take like the same amount of effort to like, okay, we'll do an EP and then we'll do an album. Like we've got these songs, they're ready to go. Um, let's just get a record out so that like, hey, we actually have a full length. It's not like there's a couple songs on the Bandcamp page you can check out to kind of get a feel.
Yeah.
And also I had a like genuine start to finish, like, okay, this is the idea and I needed to like get that out of my head so that it was out.
Yeah. And like you said, I mean, there's no reason to kind of rush ahead and try to get some more music out there because you've got a full length there. If you do, well, and as you mentioned, you were kind of like prepping to have some material ready so that you're not like dead in the water later. But that's stuff that people can look forward to when they see you live. It's like, oh, there's a new song I didn't hear, that was on the album.
we're definitely working on like getting some new stuff in the set because yeah, like I mean, you write songs and then you play them and then you record them and then people get to hear them. So now you have to keep playing them. So
Yeah.
we gotta have stuff like ready to go and start swapping stuff out uh because the stuff is so varied, we genuinely can put together like pretty different sounding sets, which is good because then I can
Yeah.
like book with different sounding bands. I'm not just only playing with like one like niche style. But yeah, I mean we're basically cycling through the same like 15 songs right now. Um, and yeah, some of them are kind of like okay, that was like the stuff that got left off the record. There are a couple that I'd like to do as like a B-sides like EP type thing.
Oh, cool.
Um, but yeah, as with anything, man, like I mean, I definitely got sick of like listening to the record at a certain point. Like
Right.
by the time it had come out, I genuinely had not listened to it. Like it was completely done and like shipped to the pressing plant in last week of May or first week of June. Um, I had not listened to it at all until maybe a week after the release.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
didn't help that I had the CD like in my car, or I would like plug my phone into the car and I would be like listening to stuff. I'd have my kid in the car, and then in the morning it became a like I want to listen to dad's music. I want to listen to dad's music. And when the 2 or 3 year old is like, hey, like, can I have this thing?
Yeah.
If it's something harmless like that, yeah, I'm apt to go with it. But man, after a little bit, it got to be like, please, no, do we
More.
have to? Do we have to listen to any? Can I listen to anything else?
Nope. Sorry, Dad.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, that's awesome.
I
Well,
mean,
Rob,
it's cool.
well, Rob, I want to thank you so much for being on Fans with Bands. I've got just one last question for you, and that is pineapple or no pineapple on pizza?
I think I'm no pineapple, but I'm not gonna like whine about it if it's there. I genuinely hate like strong food opinion things. Although there are a couple people who would probably tell you like, okay, yeah, except for this thing.
Yeah.
Uh, but no, that to me is one of those like uh it's one of those internet arguments that is like, oh no, like to make a hoagie, you can't use any mayonnaise. It's got to be
Right.
oil and vinegar only. It's like, yeah, okay, hall monitor, whatever, man. But I definitely do not prefer it. I'm a mushroom and green pepper guy.
Nice. Nice. So more like a supreme, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I like a classic like brick oven, like giant slice round pie.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I'm with you. I'm definitely not a sweet and savory person, so I care to keep those, the pineapple completely separate. Well, Rob, hopefully I'll get to see you sometime performing. I'll try to see if I can get out to a gig because, like I said, the album is fantastic. I really think it's a great album. So looking forward to seeing you guys live.
Thank you. I genuinely appreciate that. We worked very hard on it, and all credit to Phil and Dan and Ed at Woodshed Studios. It is not just me doing it. Like I'm writing the songs, but I absolutely could not have brought it to the place that it got to without those guys specifically. And also my wife, Kim, who is incredibly supportive. And when I say I could not do this without her, I mean that literally because there's not enough time in the day to do all the things that like we have to do as parents
Yeah.
and maintain this stuff. So uh, it is a huge help. And, we have a lot of fun when we go out to shows and hang out with our friends too.
That's cool. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Rob.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chuck.
All right. See ya.
Bye.
Many thanks to Rob for joining me on this episode of Fans with Bands. It was awesome to get to talk with him about his journey into music and his new album, Swim or Sink, which is an awesome album of power pop and alt rock. If you dig Social Distortion, you're going to love Rob Zinck and The Collaborators. You can get your copy of Rob's new album over on Bandcamp. Stay tuned to his socials for upcoming shows. See the show notes for all the details and links. Bands are nothing without you, the fans. Purchasing music and merchandise is critical to their survival. If you can help out your favorite bands, please do. If you're in Michigan, consider following the Playing in Detroit area tonight and SE for Southeast Michigan Music Facebook pages. They are fantastic places for fans and bands to support each other and share our combined love of music. Thank you all so much for listening. Be sure to hit subscribe on your favorite podcast service to get each and every episode of Fans with Bands. Spread the word by rating the show, telling your friends, telling your neighbors, telling your family, telling your priest, tell everyone, and leave a comment. We want to hear what you think. You can keep in touch by following us on social media. This is a Life in Michigan production. Until next time, be well and kick out the jam.